I'd like you to meet Dr. Sol Goldstein, psychiatrist and author of Michael's Ship, the story of a young boy's struggle to live with cancer. I certainly enjoyed reading this book, and I found it very emotionally straining. How did you deal with going through this experience, and why did you write the book?
I wrote the book partially to get over my emotional draining of having dealt with Michael. It was a way of telling his story and getting rid of some of those feelings from within me.
And did it help?
I hope so. I'm not sure yet.
Why did you decide to write this outside of your own feelings? Were there other reasons besides your own personal, emotional dealing with this? Yes,
I think that we saw here a boy who was unique to me, maybe, because I was treating him, and maybe unique because we had a chance to get a look at, in depth, what these children go through. But I feel that there are many children who go through the same sort of struggles, many adults who go through the same sort of struggles, and that Michael had a special view on life and on dying, which I think we could all profit from.
How is he special than other children his age, other than the fact that he had a very serious disease, a life-threatening disease?
To me, it was special in that he always made sure that he controlled his life to a certain extent, and that he was not going to allow the terrible things that were happening to him to stop him from living.
Well, how did he control his life? Through not talking in the beginning stages,
well, of course,
to the doll sequence?
Stages, yeah, for the beginning stages, he wasn't going to talk to anybody. He was going to make sure that he controlled everybody outside of him and put them in their position, let them know exactly where he was and what he wanted to do. And then it allowed him to develop what was going on inside of himself and to make something of his life which was fulfilling to him.
So it wasn't innocence that this young boy enjoyed at that time in his life. He had to grow up awfully quickly.
Yep. That's the big problem, and that's what most of these children have to do, is become adults in a hurry, or they lose their innocence very quickly.
Did that bother you a little bit, that he couldn't be a little boy?
Of course. But that happens, I think, with everybody who's sick, everybody who's troubled early in life. They become quickly adults. My job is to try to help them be the little boy as much as possible. Or if they can't do that, and in Michael's case, we really couldn't do much with that because he had to go quickly. He was running through life in a hurry. He had to live a full life in an abbreviated time.
He sounded very much like a man towards the end of this book.
He was.
You weren't there when he died, but when you heard that he died, how did you feel then?
Sad. I also felt that in a way he had won again in his way. He didn't want me around at the moment of his death. He wanted to make sure that we separated earlier, and we had done that.
So that was his decision?
It was his decision.
Did you learn anything about your own mortality through this experience?
Well, I think part of why I liked him so much is that he was able to confirm some of the things that I had, and that is that, look, life is something that we're given, that we don't know how long it's going to be, but you work to make every day its fullest and enjoy what you can and work and contribute to what you can during the time you have.
Are you afraid of death?
Not really. I'm more worried than anything about what it would do to the others who are close to me and how they would be cheated if I died too early. But otherwise, I don't think.
Was he angry in his struggle? I mean, it sounded like he was angry when he played with the dolls and he would rip them apart and he would take out his frustration on them. Is anger all part of this process of trying to deal with something that you have no control over, and that is your own, existence?
Yeah, well, when you're seeing your treatment as an attack upon you, which it happens to be, we know that the people who are treating are trying to be kind, and they are kind, and they're feeling, but the actual treatment is, in fact, an attack. When you're attacked, you feel angry, you feel hurt, and this was his anger, and he was able to work it out through the dolls rather than through the people, and that's where he was headed before he got into treatment.
Maybe we should recap a bit of the story of what happened to Michael. When he first came to you, he wasn't talking, he was withdrawn, and yet you were determined to help him. He seemed to not want your help in the book, as you explain in the story.
He saw me at first as any other person who was there saying, I'm going to help you, Michael. But he didn't want their help any longer. Look what had happened to him with the help he'd gotten in the past. Now what was happening is that we had a chance to look at it, and he had the control. He drew a ship. He drew a ship which was under the water, and it had a big hole in it. It was injured. And to me it was clear that that was Michael. And through that we were able to work with that ship and repair it, bring it up to the surface, and that was the metaphor throughout the story.
How sick was he at that time?
Physically? He wasn't sick physically at the time. He had had the surgery. He was functioning well, feeling well, and except for the lost forearm, you would not know that he was sick.
And when he was ill, how did he change? Did he deal with pain very well?
He was always stoic. He wouldn't tell people that he was sick. He would keep up and work as hard as he can. At the very end, when he could no longer really walk or be active, Then he resented when people were saying to him, do something, and you encourage him to do as much as he can, but he really physically couldn't. And at that time he was sick, and at that time he was becoming discouraged. But even then, he did as much as he could.
What about the relationship with his family, his mother particularly?
They're the true heroes of the story, you know. Any parent who can tolerate that really deserves a great deal. And parents who can tolerate that and maintain a marriage and maintain their parenting abilities with the other children deserve a medal.
And did they do that?
Yes, they did very well.
How are they able to accomplish that? I'm sure it's impossible not to want to give this extra attention to someone who is not going to be around.
They don't face the fact that he's not going to be around. You say, the parents get into the, I'm going to do for this child as much as I could over all the years in that abbreviated time. The danger is that the other children lose out on it, and somehow or other they had the strength and to give to the other children too. And the basic thing, they trusted each other. They were with each other, and they knew that they were going through this together. There wasn't any feeling of jealousy, like you're spending so much time with Michael, therefore what's available to me, and I cannot tolerate this anymore. They're very supportive of each other, and are to this day.
It would be understandable that they would feel that way, though.
It would be understandable, but sometimes we have to work in spite of our feelings. And there's always a way out, or there's a way to stay inside and stay within the battle. That's what Michael did, and that's what they did.
How did you work with the parents in this situation? You saw him on a one-to-one basis, as I understand, according to the book.
I saw him on a one-to-one basis, and I saw the parents very much more, much less frequently.
Much less frequently, yes.
Much less frequently. I would see them once every second week, once a month, and we would just talk about what was happening and look at some of the danger points of what might be happening to their emotions as a result of what was going on with Michael.
Did you have to watch their relationship closely, too, as well as Michael, to see if there'd be any conflict between them?
It would be something I'd have to watch, but didn't need watching, really.
So he was very independent?
Yes.
All of his feelings and all of his world was sort of like controlled by him. Is this something we should learn from?
Well, yes, but he wasn't entirely independent. He still had a lot to do with his family. He still demanded of his mother, of his father, of his brothers. He still maintained a very active relationship with his siblings. Bullied them, fought with them, threatened them, as you know in the story where he threatens that he's going to come back after he dies.
Yes.
It was very much a family situation. It was a close family. And I think that's the key to it, is to maintain the closeness and to work all together rather than to feel that each one should be running away because they are being cheated. They were being cheated, but they didn't look at it that way. You know, you can look at the half-empty glass or half-full glass. It's the same amount of water.
In the first half of the book, you talk about him battling against this disease and trying to succeed against it with his battleship, as he describes it. But then, of course, he gets cancer again. How did he react?
Again, he was stoic. He then participated in what he was going to do for the rest of his life. To quote him in the book, he said, "I'm not here to talk to you about dying, I'm here to talk to you about living." And that's exactly what he did. From the time that he knew that he was going to be dying, that the cancer had returned, he said, "That's not what I'm interested in talking about. I'm interested in talking about what I can do from now till the end."
So he didn't show any emotion?
Not much, no.
Doesn't that surprise you? Doesn't it scare you a little bit?
Well, the emotion showed up, of course, in the play and the activity, but he was very much the firm, non-panicker. It scares a little bit, but on the other hand, what better way of dealing with it? If he had to deal with his own children or something like that, then you would want him to have more emotion to be able to give to them in that way. But otherwise, he had to be the one who handled it through a lot of control.
Why do you do what you do, working with children like this? Isn't it tough? How do you get up in the morning and go in and say, look, I'm going to be meeting with a number of young people who can't look forward to a life that's going to include all the things that we live for?
First of all, I don't do that exclusively. That's the rare exception, and I don't know that I would even take on another patient to do this in depth with somebody who is dying for that long a period of time. But it puts a certain perspective on life that helps me deal with the children who are saying, I'm very unhappy because I did not get this sort of bicycle, or I'm very unhappy because I was cheated. Everybody else is going for a vacation to Nassau and I'm only going to Florida. It gives me a different perspective to look at things. Shows me what to do with my own life, I guess. And I enjoy children, and I think if somebody's troubled, I want to help them.
Good. Well, thank you very much for the book. It was very interesting and I learned something. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.